And welcome. So we have. Sorry, I just watched Doyle climb down the bars in the dumbest way she could have. But it's fine. She's cute. So it's fine. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about kind of like when you should be getting new rats if you want to be creating a rolling group. They're just like, what's going on here? Anyway, yeah, so that's what we're going to be talking about. Let's just go ahead and get into it. So, rats are social animals. Like, you'll hear this all the time. Rats are social animals. They need company. They need company for their entire life. They need rat company specifically because without it, they are going to become stressed and depressed, and it's just not good for them. It can really affect their health. My cat is here. She's like, what the hell, Mom? You started without me. I'm sorry, you weren't here. What was I supposed to do, baby? So, in order to make sure that your rats always have companionship of other rats, people will suggest doing a rolling group, which basically means that you just continually add new rats as you go along so that everyone has company for their entire lives. So, what most people suggest is that you get 2 new rats every 6 to 8 months. And I don't necessarily agree with this. There's a few reasons why. So let's just like go straight into it. So let's start with establishing how many rats you want. So not everyone's going to be like me. I currently have 17 rats. Not everyone wants 17 rats. And I can understand that. Having over a dozen rats is a lot. Some people would say it's insane. I don't agree. My life's full of love. The most common thing I see is about 6 to 7. And most people, when you first get rats, will suggest that you get 3 rats. And then after that, every 6 to 8 months, add 2 more onto it. Now, I will talk about what I personally like to do, and then my suggestion for what other people should do. I don't establish like a time frame for when I'm going to get rats because I know I'm not going to follow it. I'm not going to follow it. Why bother? So most of the time with me, because I do have so many, it's just when I see a rat that like speaks to me, I go for it. Sometimes I plan it, sometimes I don't. Doyle and Weaver weren't planned, but these guys were, that kind of thing. These guys weren't planned. This is the Gravies. So like Scylla was not planned. I saw Scylla and I was just like, I need her. So that's how Scylla happened. It's that kind of thing. It's like I don't often, my cat's crawling out from under the bed. For a reference, my bed has about this much space between it and the floor, and the kittens can still get in there, so watching them crawl out sideways, it's something else. Anyway, so I don't always plan when I'm going to get rats, but sometimes it is important to plan. So like, for example, when I lived in Arizona, where I lived, there were only 2 rat breeders, and they were both pretty far from me, and they were both on like a hiatus for like 6 months where they didn't have any babies available. And the only rescue I had in Arizona was they just had intact males. They didn't have any females whatsoever. And it left me in this weird position where I couldn't get rats for like 6 months. And since I had so many, I got down to like 9, which is still, some people would say a lot of rats, but for me that was a pretty low number at the time. And it put me in an awkward position, and there weren't like rehoming groups specifically for my area then. There were a little bit later, but like right then there weren't. So like that's why sometimes you do need to plan when to get rats so that you don't end up in this situation. But even when there are like 2 breeders near you, you can't always plan what's going to happen because sometimes you need males and they'll only have females, or vice versa, or they'll have like really small litters, or if like they're dwarfs, they're guaranteed to have small litters almost. It's very rare that a dwarf has more than 5 babies in a litter. So sometimes it can be hard to plan that. But in general, like, know your area, know what you have available, and like try to compensate for that as you need to. But the reason why I don't necessarily agree with the every 6 to 8 months thing is because rats are very, very, very unpredictable. So for me, if I got rats every 6 to 8 months, for a long time, my rats very consistently lived to 2 years and 2 months to 2 years and 3 months old. Very, very consistent. It was like a very reliable thing. And I could plan for that. But then I started spaying more of my females, and I also started getting rats from different places other than Arizona The rats in Arizona were weirdly healthy. Like the two breeders in the rescue, because we didn't have pet stores that carried rats. So all the rats that ended up in rescue were either from backyard breeders, feeder breeders, or feeder bins. And mine were all just like across the board weirdly healthy compared to the ones in Texas. Or maybe the ones I'm getting now are just weirdly unhealthy compared to the ones in Arizona. I don't know. But it was very consistent. And so I could kind of plan around, okay, every 6 months I could go get 2 to 3 rats, which meant about 4 to 6 rats a year. At most, I'd have around like a little over 12 rats, 15 to 17 rats. And I could plan for that and it would have been fine. And then I started spaying some of the girls and I moved here. And the numbers went wild. The ages my rats were living to were all over the board. It was like scattershot, basically. So many of my spayed girls just sailed past 2.5. 2 of my neutered males also did, Fitz and Baker, just like right past 2.5, no problem. And then some of my other girls were dying a lot younger. Some of them spayed, some of them not. Most of them not, admittedly. So it's like this year alone, so far, I've lost 6 rats. One of them is Lamb. I haven't talked about it in a video yet, and I'll probably talk a little bit about it in a vlog, but Lamb did unfortunately pass away recently. And she was 2 years and 10 months old, and she's the oldest of the one. Dex, she's rubbing up on it. She's the oldest of the ones I've lost this year, but my youngest was Bonnet, and she was 1 year and 3 months old. And the point of getting rats every 6 to 8 months is you're assuming they're going to live to a certain age, and that you'll be able to continuously have a rolling group based on that age. But you cannot plan for ones dying young or ones living way past what the expected life is for a rat. Hi, Kelpie. Hey, baby. Hey. I think she tweaked her back because she's been holding her tail a little funny. Hi, baby. Hi. She, when she gets excited, she just, whips around, and I think she just, bashed her tail into something and tweaked her back. Hi, baby. I bet she's doing good. Anyway, so it's really hard to plan for a rat that's going to live to 3, for example, and it's hard to plan for a rat that's only going to live to, 1 year old. And if you try to create a rolling group based exclusively on every 6 to 8 months, you can find yourself in an unfortunate situation. So, if you only get 3 rats and then 1 dies very quickly, you're going to have to go find new rats, and then they're all going to be the same age, and then you're going to have to figure that out later on down the line. The other thing with the 6 to 8 months is to make sure that, medically speaking, the big stuff isn't happening all at the same time. So, if you get males around the 6-month mark, that's when they tend to get the hormonal issues. And then with females, it's the tumor issues, which will happen usually around 18 months, sometimes a little bit younger, sometimes a little bit older. And you don't want all those expenses happening at once. But again, you cannot plan for your rats to be healthy necessarily. You can plan for them to be sick, but you cannot plan for them to be healthy. Because sometimes things just happen, they get heart issues, like so many of my young rats have had recently. You can't plan for accidents or pyometra, which can happen at any time. Heart issues can happen at any time. They can go into kidney failure at any time if they have bad genetics. It's that kind of thing. You can't always plan for that. And then if you have neutered males, on the off chance that they pass away during surgery, you can't plan for that. Sometimes a rat looks perfectly healthy, they go into surgery, and some underlying issue pops up and they end up passing away. Now, in general, surgery is not as dangerous for rats as people make it out to be. I find that the danger is way overstated and people really get freaked out about it. But again, I've done dozens of surgeries with my rats and I haven't lost anyone. So it's really just if there's an underlying issue, that's usually when they tend to pass away. Or if they have a problem with the anesthesia or something like that. Sometimes they just have a sensitivity and there's no way for you to know until they're under anesthesia. So what's my suggestion, if not the 6 to 8 months thing? And my suggestion is sock away as much as you can in a vet fund. It's not going to fix every problem, but it sure will make it a lot easier to breathe around the bad problems. And decide how many rats you want. So if you want 4 rats, I would suggest starting with 2, and then 6 to 8 months later, you get another 2. And then when you lose 2, regardless of how old they are, regardless of how long it's been, you get another 2. If you want 6 rats, a similar thing. You start out with, I would suggest 3, and then like a year later or something, you get another 3. And every time you lose 2 after that, just get another 2. And that's what I would suggest. I would establish how big of a group you want, and then based on that, add rats with as much distance between their ages as you feel comfortable with, and then just try and keep that going. And the reason I put it like this is because, and this is an issue I see so many people with social pets dealing with, and like, I mean, rabbits, guinea pigs, mice, rats, like just social pets in general. Sometimes you get an asshole, and I don't mean like Mystic, who I understand her. I know she's a problem rat, but I also know I can do intros with her and she will calm down. And she actually really likes Doyle and Weaver. She hasn't gone Hulk on them yet. I suspect she will because I know her, but she's a lot calmer than I thought she'd be with the 2 of them. Or you have my 2 Gravies here. And quite frankly, I think Kelpie and Thistle are not going to get along with these guys at all. Based on their personalities, I think that's a bad match. I'll probably still try for it, but I do get a feeling I'm going to need to go get some boys for these guys. And that's the issue, is sometimes you get a rat that is very difficult to intro, and you can easily fall into the trap of trying to get them companions and then just ending up with way more rats than you intended. Or sometimes 2 groups, like if you have a neutered male and he's just not getting along with boys and you go get girls. Or if you have a spayed female and she's just not getting along with girls, so you go get boys. It's that kind of thing that can really derail your plans. It's like you cannot predict how old they're going to be. And sometimes in trying to do what's best for them, you end up with 2 cages, or in my case, I ended up with 3 cages because of it. Because I had 2 groups and then Sailor came along. Now I have 4 groups, but we're not talking about that. That's not a problem. I ended up with 4 groups because the Weather Girls were just as bad as Sailor. So I had like the Weather Girls in with Humdrum. That's the only rat they ever accepted until I got old, and then they took on Baker. And then I had I called them the triplets in one group. And then I had 2 groups which could actually go through intros and do things. That's another issue. And there's not really much you can do necessarily to prevent that other than having rat friends. I find that if a lot of people, when they have like friends in real life that have rats, they can like trade rats to try them with different groups. It helps a lot if one of you has boys and one of you has girls too. But that is not always going to be possible. Not everyone can have rat buddies. So the things to keep in mind are medical expenses. Again, you can't always predict it. Sometimes you're just going to have rats that constantly need to see the vet, constantly need some kind of medication, constantly need some kind of care. And that is unfortunate. And sometimes these can get quite expensive. Like my rat Junimo, who passed away recently with her teeth trims. It cost $135 every 3 weeks to have her teeth trimmed. But she needed that done so that she could actually eat and live. But sometimes it's often a lot simpler and a lot cheaper. It's not necessarily something you can plan for unless you have some warning beforehand. Like if you have a rat that has problems due to their variety, like hairless rats with their eye issues or Harleys with their skin issues. And I do find a lot of people want you to plan for like best case scenario, which best case scenario being you're only going to have big expenses when they're old and dying, or when they need tumors removed, when you really should prepare for anything, because like they could get hormonal aggression regardless of where you get them. They could have health issues regardless of where you get them from. They could have behavioral issues regardless of where you get them from. And sometimes you just have to deal with that as a pet owner. So keep in mind, they do tend to get sick or start showing a lot of health issues around 18 months old or around 6 months old for hormonal issues. So keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind, rats do better in groups than in pairs. So try to always have at least 3 if you can. And just establish the group size you want and what you think you can handle, and do your best to maintain that. Not everyone is equipped to deal with 17 rats. The other thing people deal with a lot is when they want to get out of rats and they don't know how to do that ethically because their rat, they don't want the rat to be alone. And the best option for that is rehoming them to someone else who has rats, and establishing that before they end up alone so that you don't have to rush to find them a new home. I see that a lot on my local rehoming group where people either get a single rat or end up with a single rat, or end up in a position where they have to rapidly rehome because they're social. So yeah, when it comes to adding to your Mischief, just go with what feels right. Go with the group size that you feel most comfortable with, what your cage can allow, because not every group is going to be the same. For example, the dwarfs, I don't want more than 7 rats in that cage. I don't want more than 6 dwarf rats and no more than 7 normal rats in that cage. Or rats in general, I mean. And with my normal cages, my cutoff is also 7, even though technically Critter Nations can hold up to 9. I just don't like to go over 7 because that's when I feel like it's hard to maintain the cleanliness of the cage. And then again with the dwarfs, I choose not to have more than 6 dwarfs in that cage because I had 8 at one point and it was a disaster. So I have 5 dwarfs in there and 2 standards, and I won't have more than 6 dwarfs in a cage ever. So yeah, a bit of a rambly video, a bit of a shorter one, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, you know what to do. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!